Well, hello everybody! Welcome back to G-Bear's Off-Grid Ways, a homestead in the desert. And as promised, video number 2 today has to do with components in the battery room. What are they? What are they for? It was a question that was asked. So, let's start right here. And this with 3 wires on top and 2 wires on the bottom. Notice the top 3 wires are all the same color, but the ones on the bottom, one is red, one is black. This is a bridge rectifier. Sounds complicated, right? Not really. All it is inside of this thing are diodes. And a diode is a little item that allows electricity to only flow in one direction. It can't come back through the connection. It's got to go on in one direction. Okay? It's allowed to pass in one direction, but it's got a cutoff if it tries to come backwards. So they put a series of those inside of here that take these 3 input wires, which is 3-phase AC, alternating current, coming off of my wind turbine. That's these 3 heavy wires. They go into the lugs, and then the lugs jumper over to the bridge rectifier. Okay, so those are all 3 providing electricity in. Well, you can't have 3 hot wires and no ground or neutral or whatever. So you've got to somehow convert those over to where you have a positive and a negative. So the inside of this, the diodes, cause the electricity that's coming in on each one of these to only go in one direction until they get over to the proper connector here, and then they go out one and back in the other. Okay, and I've got a gauge on here so it tells me what I'm getting from my wind turbine. Now the winds have calmed down, so it's not going to be producing much right now. Alright, then coming out of that goes right down to the battery. Okay, positive and negative are connected to the batteries. Now, the negative here is connected up here to the first battery in the bank, and the positive goes through a breaker down to the last battery in the battery bank. So it's on the positive here and on the negative up there. So it uses the whole battery bank as one gigantic 12-volt battery. Alright, so that's what that is. Now, since the turbine, or the PMA, which is permanent magnet alternator, it's an alternator because it has alternating current. If it had a black and a red wire coming in, then it would be a PMG, or a permanent magnet generator. Alright, so since this goes directly into the batteries, I've got to have some way of stopping it from overcharging the batteries. So, at the time, this was the going item to use. This is called a dump load controller. Now, this is not a regular PMA charge controller like that up there. Okay, this is designed specifically to work with this unit, and you would buy the whole unit as one. Now, they don't make these anymore. You still might find one somewhere that somebody is selling, getting rid of, but they don't really make them anymore. Now they make a digital dump load diverter, not a dump load controller. It's a dump load diverter. It has a very small digital unit on here, and it doesn't use the solenoid. A solenoid is basically an in or out switch. Okay, it's got a electromagnetic coil in there, and when power is sent to it through these 2 wires right here, and when power is sent through there, positive and negative, then it will cause that thing to kick on and make connection between this post and this post, so electricity can flow. So it takes the electricity that's overcharging in the batteries and it'll connect through there, and then that runs up to a load. Now this load is just a heating coil. Now some people will already say, and I've heard it 1,000 times before, why don't you use that for hot water? Because I don't need hot water. I live in the desert. I got 2 months out of the year where I need to heat water to shower, and I use a propane tankless water heater, which is very efficient. It doesn't use a lot of propane, and I get hot water on when I turn down the faucet, and when I shut it off, there's no gas being used. So that's how I heat my water, and I don't really need hot water. If I hooked this up to a hot water heater, I would be getting hot water in the unit all year round, but I don't need it all year round. So what it does is that this actually works inside of this room, because it gets cold here in the winter. That's when I need hot water, but I also need heat in this room to heat my batteries, to keep my batteries warm so that they're more efficient. A battery, especially lead acid battery, but mostly all batteries, even lithium, don't like the extreme cold. So when it drops down below freezing here in the wintertime, and the winds are blowing in the wintertime, which is when I get my biggest winds, then this thing is putting off heat in this room with the door closed. This room stays nice and cozy, and my batteries are happy. Okay, so that's what that's all about. Now I wired this little computer fan into the unit, so when the solenoid kicks in, it'll get hot. So this will blow air, coming cold air up off the floor. It'll blow cold air over the solenoid and keep the solenoid cool, and also keep my controller cool. All right, so I can show you that by pushing this button. This is the manual start. Okay, there's the fan just kicked on. You see the yellow light? That's signifying that the power is going out to load. Okay, so the load is up there. If I had my little thermometer, no-touch thermometer, I could show you how that was heating up right now. But that's what that's all about. Okay, so now you know what that is. This is a DC breaker. The kids buy these things for those big boom units they put in their cars. Well, they work great on solar stuff too. So this is the button that would pop the breaker and disconnect this from the battery. That means it's popped. The lights went out on my unit. So I click it back in, and everything comes on. All right. So that's those components. All right, now everything else that's in here is basically charge controllers. This is an MPPT hybrid, which is made in China, and it's supposed to handle either turbine or solar. Not both, just one. It'll only handle one. But you can't put both solar and turbine through this thing. Okay, so right now it's being used for solar, and that's about the best I can do. Now running that element just for a little while dropped my batteries down from 12.8 to 12.4. So that was a pretty good draw on the system. And I have this battery repair unit. I've been running it during the day when I've got extra electricity, nothing to do with it, so I just hooked it up to the center of the battery bank, and I put it in battery repair so that it just sends power into the battery bank all day. And my batteries stay up in the 13s for the whole day. Let's see if I can get this thing disconnected. There we go. So it's gone out now. Oops. All right, so these are just fans that I've added to the system. When it gets too hot in here, it blows cool air over my controllers to keep those cool. They're pretty cool right now, so they don't really need it. But that's what that's for. Those are Harbor Freight charge controllers. Everybody knows what charge controllers are. Other than that, there's nothing else in here that you really have to know about. That's it. You know what an inverter is. This is the inverter. And this is called a split phase inverter. And this has 240 volts AC that comes out of here, line 1, line 2, and neutral, and goes into my breaker panel just inside the cabin right there. And that gives me my power throughout the whole cabin, my shops, garage, all of that. So I have 240 volts available, 120 volts on each leg, and I haven't had any problems with power. So that's it. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining me. Don't forget your thumbs ups down there. Don't forget to share and subscribe. If you have any other questions, or if I've missed anything that you would like to know about, just feel free to ask. Leave it down in the comment section, and I'll see what I can do for you. This is G-Bear signing off.